Hi guys, this is a PowerPoint that goes over a lot of different comma rules. Not all of the comma rules, but a lot of the ones that will show up on the grammar exam that you guys are going to take really soon. You can find this PowerPoint in this assignment page, as well as a link to the Purdue OWL comma rules, which we'll go over some of as well. While I'm going through the PowerPoint, and only the PowerPoint, I'm going to show you 6 different sentence structures that use commas. And what I want you to do to receive credit for this assignment is every time that I mention one, I'll tell you to pause the video and go and write a example sentence of that. And you're just going to go to the submission box right here, and you're going to write all 6 of your sentences right here in the submission box. I'm going to show you some Purdue OWL ones. You don't actually need to do samples of those. I guess you could if you wanted to. But I'm just looking for 6 complete sentences showing proper comma use. Okay. So, the following is a series of comma, semicolon, and sentence structure rules that many students have trouble applying correctly in their writing. Learn these rules and the reasons for them to improve your essay grades. Primarily, remember that you should never use a comma unless you know exactly why you need it. This is a mistake a lot of students make, is they just kind of throw commas in there willy-nilly. If you're someone who does that, stop it. You need to have a reason for commas to be there. Generally, when you're using a comma, it is to show how the different parts of a sentence relate to each other and how they're separated. And usually it's because things in the sentence are in an unnatural order, or you need to differentiate them. In that case, you end up using a comma. All right, pattern 1 is you have 2 sentences or independent clauses connected with a fanboys. You need a comma before the fanboys. Fanboys are also called coordinating conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Those are words that we use to connect parts of a sentence together or connect sentences together. And if you're connecting 2 independent clauses together, then you need to have a comma before your fanboys. So this is 2 independent clauses. My dog ran, my cat slept. If we want to connect those together, all we need to do is add a comma and a fanboys, and then we have 1 sentence instead of 2, and we've connected those 2 independent clauses. We're not going to use that video. So here's the pattern that we're looking for. Complete sentence, comma, coordinating conjunction, complete sentence. Sample 1. Bubba shot the jukebox and he sped away in his enormous dually. So this is 2 independent clauses connected with the fanboys. Bubba shot the jukebox is 1 independent clause. He sped away in his enormous dually is another independent clause. If we connect these this way, it means that we need to have a comma, and we need to put it right before the word and here. You can see the spell check software is trying to correct this right now. You can see there's the comma in the corrected version. So we need this because these are independent clauses, but if the second one was a dependent clause, we wouldn't actually need a comma. If we said, Bubba shot the jukebox and sped away in his enormous dually, and we took out the word he, the second part here becomes a dependent clause. A dependent clause needs a complete sentence to connect to in order to be able to stand, in order to be able to function. If we said sped away in his enormous dually, that doesn't make sense as a complete sentence, right? So that means that that's a dependent clause, and it means we don't actually need punctuation there. Yeah. All right, I think, yeah. Okay, so go ahead and on the assignment page in the submission box, type up a sample sentence for sentence pattern 1. You can pause the video while you do that. I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, let's look at pattern 2. Pattern 2, use a comma after a prepositional phrase that comes before a complete sentence or independent clause. Look for words like in, over, with, without, at, on, between. Prepositional phrases are phrases that explain when or where something happened. They explain the position, which is why the word position is in there, sort of. So that is an example of what we're looking for here. In my car, that's a prepositional phrase. It's explaining where someone is, but it isn't a complete sentence. It isn't a independent clause. I felt cold. That is an independent clause. So we're establishing where something happened, comma, and then we're saying what exactly happened. Now, if we turn this around and we said, I felt cold in my car, then we don't need a comma. This is the natural way that you would write this sentence. This is the uncomplicated way. And so it doesn't require a comma. If you want to have the in the car part first, then you need a comma separating those two. Prepositional phrase, comma, complete sentence, like we said before. Okay. So here's the sample sentence. On the rotten log, the rabbit was sitting silently. So you could probably hear from the way that I read that where the comma needs to go. It goes right after log. On the rotten log, comma, the rabbit was sitting silently. Now if we turn this around and we said the rabbit was sitting silently on the rotten log, we actually don't need a comma in that case. That means, no comma. The rabbit was sitting silently on the rotten log. This is the natural way to write the sentence again. You want to say what the subject is before you say what they're doing. So in that case, you don't need a comma. I think that's it for this example. Yeah. So go ahead and in the assignment box, write a sample sentence for pattern 2, preposition, comma, independent clause. Right, let's go to number 3. Use a comma after a dependent or subordinate clause that comes before a complete sentence. The last one that we just looked at, the prepositional phrases that we showed were themselves dependent clauses, so they kind of count as this as well. For dependent words, look for if, because, when, after, before, since, unless, while. Dependent clauses by themselves are called sentence fragments. So you kind of went through that already when you were looking at the fragments and comma splices part. What this looks like is if you have your dependent clause go first, and then you means that the dependent clause is leading the way, and then which is kind of the natural way to write the sentence again. So you need a comma there to go after the dependent clause. Let's see. Because I was hungry, comma, I got McDonald's. If we reverse this, we put it in the way that it would naturally go. If we say I got McDonald's, then we don't actually need a comma in this one. But that's a clause. No, it's a subordinating clause, so it makes this into a dependent clause. Okay, so for examples here, let's see. English class made me sleepy. This is an independent clause on its own, if we write it this way. But if we add a word, if we say, because English class made me sleepy, when English class made me sleepy, after English class made me sleepy, any of those, that becomes a sentence fragment and a dependent clause. And we need to add something to it in order to turn it into a complete sentence. Yeah, dependent clause, comma, complete sentence. So, because English class made me sleepy, I took a nap on my desk. You can see from, again, the spell check is pointing it out, where this comma needs to go. It needs to go right after sleepy, which it does right there. Oops, now I messed up my place. Yeah. If we turn this around, if we said, I took a nap on my desk because English class made me sleepy, then we wouldn't actually need a comma. Is it going to show us that? Why is it like this? Yeah, I took a nap on my desk because English class made me sleepy. Where does the comma go? You don't need a comma. Okay, go ahead and write a sample for this one. I think we're on 3. That pattern, yeah, pattern 4 is next. So, dependent clause, comma, independent clause. All right, next one, pattern 4. Use a comma after an introductory word. Also, however, therefore, thus, consequently, nevertheless, tragically, unfortunately, fortunately. Any word like that that starts off a sentence is continuing the thought from the previous sentence and is something that you could probably take out of that sentence. But, and because of that, we're going to put a comma before it. Sometimes, is another example, introductory words are called transitional words. They help to transition from one sentence to the next. Introductory word, comma, complete sentence. I'll give you an example for myself before I show that one. Unfortunately, I got food poisoning. Unfortunately here is an introductory word. It's showing us the tone of the sentence, I guess, in this case. And then I got food poisoning is our independent clause. Some students think that Kilgore College should provide complimentary donuts each morning. However, others favor pigs in blankets. Is it pig in a blankets or pigs in blankets, I wonder? Anyway, you can see here, again, spell check is trying to correct this right now and pointing out that I need a comma after however here. Which ends up working like that. However, comma, others favor pigs in blankets. Go ahead and write a sample for pattern 4. We got 2 more of these, and then you'll be done writing. All right, pattern 5. Use a comma after a participle phrase, a phrase that describes a noun that comes before a complete sentence or independent clause. This is very similar to patterns for 2 and 3. Participle phrases are phrases that describe a noun. Naturally, you want to say the noun first and then the description of the noun, but if you put the description first, then you need a comma after that to make it part of that sentence. So I misspelled sluggishly. Yeah, sluggishly, comma, my car drove down the road. Sluggish is a description of my car and how it's driving. So I put a comma after it. Participle phrase, complete sentence. Running from the police, several men in costume were soon arrested. Spell check doesn't know what to make of this one, but based on how I read that, you can probably tell where the comma is supposed to go. Running from police, comma, several men in costume were soon arrested. Yeah. If we turn it around, just like the other sentences, we don't end up needing a comma. Several men in costume were soon arrested running from the police. Probably wouldn't put soon in there. Yeah, no comma. An error that can occur with these is called a dangling modifier, and this is where you modify the wrong noun. This is where you make it look like you're describing one noun when you're actually describing another. So in this example, running from police, Officer Jones arrested the costume man. Obviously, Officer Jones isn't the one running from police, the costume man is. So we need to make sure that that's in the right order. Running from police, the costume man was arrested by Officer Jones. Alright, do one for pattern 5. Pause the video. And then we'll do one more of these, and then we'll look at a couple other comma rules. Okay. Pattern 6. Never use a comma by itself to join two complete sentences or independent clauses. This will cause a comma splice. You're going to make comma splices at some point in the year. That's perfectly normal, but it's important to know when you need a period and when you need a comma. And commas are different than periods. They're for breaking up sentences. They're not for ending them. Instead of a comma, use a semicolon, add a conjunction after the comma, or separate the sentences. If you simply remove the comma on a comma splice, it becomes a run-on, and that's not correct either. So you need to change it. Complete sentence. So here's the samples. You have independent clauses here. Complete sentence, semicolon, complete sentence. Complete sentence, comma, coordinating conjunction, complete sentence, like we showed before. Complete sentence, period, complete sentence. So if we had this example sentence again, the same one I showed before, we could leave it punctuated like this, and it would be this sort of pattern. We could put it together with a semicolon and make it a single sentence with a semicolon. Or we could use a comma and fan blocks. These are the wrong way to do it. If you put two complete sentences together with a comma, that's a comma splice. If you put two complete sentences together with no punctuation, that is a run-on. Here's some examples. Sometimes pictures with Santa Claus can be awkward. They don't make happy memories. We should have, so this is a comma splice because sometimes pictures with Santa can be awkward is an independent clause. They don't cause happy memories. That's an independent clause. And so if we want to connect those, we can't just do it with a comma. And we can't just do it with nothing at all, like this one here. Sometimes pictures with Santa Claus can be awkward. They don't make happy memories. Those are, again, two independent clauses. They need something to separate them. So this one does it with a semicolon after awkward. That's the easiest way to do it, probably, if you've made a comma splice. This one does it with a comma and the word and. Sometimes pictures with Santa can be awkward, comma, and they don't make happy memories. This one does it with a period so that they're two separate sentences. This one does it with a subordinating conjunction. Sometimes pictures with Santa can be awkward because they don't make happy memories. And this is another way to correct it. All right, so do a pattern for sample 6. Pause the video. And then we're going to look at a couple more comma rules really quickly. How are we doing on time here? All right, you should have 6 different versions of sentences down here in the bottom. If you don't have 6, review the PowerPoint again and figure out which one you missed. I'm going to look here at the comma rules on Purdue OWL. This is a website that we use a lot in English. It's the place where you go to learn about MLA and APA format. And they're sort of the authority on a lot of that stuff and have a lot of free educational materials. So running through this, this first one we covered already. This is 2 independent clauses. This is introductory clauses, phrases, and words. We already did those. This one we haven't done yet. Use a pair of commas in the middle of a sentence to set off clauses, phrases, or words that are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. So anytime you have a sentence where there's extra information just sort of dropped into the middle of it that isn't necessary for understanding the sentence, you'll put commas around it to show that it's extra information. Let's see some examples here. That Tuesday, comma, which happens to be my birthday, comma, is the only day when I am available to meet. So, this case, this is extra information that this person's adding in. We don't need to know that their birthday is that day for the sentence to make sense. It's just telling us that because they probably don't actually want to meet that day, right? The restaurant has an exciting atmosphere. The food, comma, on the other hand, comma, is rather bland. You could just say the food is rather bland, but instead they said the food on the other hand is rather bland. And so that's extra stuff that you could take out of the sentence. So we're going to set it off with commas. In this case, comma, however, comma, you seem to have overexerted yourself. You don't need however in there for the sentence to make sense, so we're going to put commas around it. You don't do this rule if the information that you would take out is essential to the sentence, if it's essential to understanding it. Look for that clauses, and it gives some examples of those here. The book that I borrowed from you is excellent. If you just said the book is excellent, it's not telling you which book you're talking about. So adding that in there explains which book they're talking about, and it makes that sentence make sense. The apples that fell out of the basket are bruised. If we said all the apples, if we just said the apples are bruised, then that would be all the apples, but we're specifically talking about the ones that fell out of the basket. Okay. Students who cheat only harm themselves. Again, if we took out who cheat, we would be removing an essential part of the sentence. We would be saying students only harm themselves. That doesn't seem right. The baby wearing a yellow jumpsuit is my niece. If we just said the baby is my niece, there's presumably a lot of babies there, so that would be not explaining enough. Alright. Use a comma to separate 3 or more words, phrases, or clauses written in a series. If you have a list of something going on in your sentence, you need to separate those with commas. The Constitution establishes the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the government. So that's separating that list of different branches. The candidate promised to lower taxes, protect the environment, reduce crime, and end unemployment. Again, that's a list of different things that they have going on there. So two or more coordinating adjectives that describe the same noun. If you're using two descriptors for a noun, and neither one of them absolutely has to be placed right before the noun, then put commas between them. So the way to figure that out, if you take out your adjectives and you move them around, if they're interchangeable, then you put a comma between them. If they're not interchangeable, if you can't do that for some reason, then you don't put a comma between them. So he was a stubborn, difficult child. In this case, we could switch difficult and stubborn and it wouldn't make a difference. So we can put a comma there. They lived in a white frame house. So this is describing the type of house it is. A frame house is a type of house. So even though these are both adjectives, the white has to go first, frame has to go second, so we're not going to put a comma between those two. She often wore a gray wool shawl. A wool shawl is a specific kind of shawl. If you said a wool gray shawl, it wouldn't make as much sense, so you're not going to put a comma there. Your cousin has an easy, happy smile. An easy smile and a happy smile both work, so you can separate these and mix them up. So you would put a comma between those. All right. Use commas near the end of a sentence to separate contrasting coordinate elements, or indicate a distinct pause or shift. My voice is getting tired. So if you have something at the end that seems to contradict what the regular sentence is saying, you'll put a comma before that. He was merely ignorant, comma, not stupid. So this is showing there's a difference between ignorant and stupid here. And it wants to show that, so it has the comma there. The chimpanzee seemed reflective, almost human. This is, again, sort of contradicting that he's a chimpanzee, saying he's almost human, right? So we have the comma there. Use commas to set off phrases at the end of a sentence that refer to the beginning or middle of the sentence. You're doing this because if you don't have the comma there, it can make it confusing as to what you're modifying there. So Nancy waved enthusiastically at the docking ship, laughing joyously. We have this comma here after ship because otherwise the ship is laughing joyously. But we know that the ship isn't laughing, Nancy's laughing. So the comma indicates that this goes with the beginning of the sentence, not with docking ship. Laughing joyously, Lisa waved at Nancy. This is showing us, again, that I think it's Lisa this time that's laughing. Okay. Use commas to separate geographical names, items, and dates. In geography, you're going to use it to differentiate between the different parts of an area. So Birmingham is a city in Alabama, which is a state. So we have commas between those two to show the difference. And if we kept going, we would say Birmingham, Alabama, USA, North America. We don't do all that stuff, though. Separating numbers and a date, July 22nd, comma, 1959, comma. We do that to offset the date there and to make sure that it's easy to tell which numbers go with who. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. You see all the commas there. Pennsylvania Avenue is the street address. Washington is the city, and DC is the district. And then Rachel B. Lake, comma, MD. That's separate. That's showing what their designation is, what job they have. Commas between main discourse and a quote. Anytime you have a quotation within a sentence, you're going to have commas before it or after it, depending on where the sentence starts and ends. So you can see how that works here. I was able, comma, end quotes, she answered, comma, begin quotes, to complete the assignment. All right. Separating things that could get confused. To George, comma, Harrison had been a sort of idol. Don't use commas to separate subject from verb. This would be a comma that you were dropping in there for no reason. Don't use a comma between two verbs or verb phrases in a compound predicate. We laid out our music and snacks, comma, and began to study. You wouldn't use this here. And I think that's pretty much it. Alright guys, make sure you have your 6 sentences done, turn those in, and that's all of the assignment that you have for this assignment. See you guys in class.